Namaskar and welcome to this exciting Sattology Club, a Sattology session debunking mythology. We are here to talk about Hanuman, a very popular figure even in today's times. I think many people like him for his focus on exercises, and the second, and his another thing which people love him for is his jump into the Lanka to save Mother Sita. So I think we have first instance of a very proactive action against injustice to women. And so without delay, let us welcome a very popular guest and very respectable. He has come on our show many times, guided us, and extremely popular on our show. Without delay, let us welcome His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj. Hare Krishna. So, Maharaj, you have spoken so much on Ramayana and it's so well received over the years. In fact, I was before hearing you, I had only seen television serials. And in fact, when you hear Ramanand Sagar serial, you actually lose interest in Bhagwan Ram after that. Because he was as what I've read in now in Valmiki Ramayana, he was a fast decision maker. He was a chivalrous person and took active decisions. He was ready to follow dharma. So, and also he used to do exercise. So before you speak a little bit more on Hanuman, my first question will be: did Hanuman get his focus on exercise and bala from Ram, or was it before Bhagwan Ram? He was already interested in those kind of things.
So, Aditya, it's a pleasure to be on your call again, on your program. I'm happy you're reaching out to so many people who are interested in Vedic culture and civilization. Hanuman is a very, very interesting personality. And in the Valmiki Ramayana has many, shall we say, versions in different countries, not just in India. In India, you have Ramayana in many languages. And even outside of India, you have Ramayans in Thailand and other places in Southeast Asia and so on. But the original Ramayana is by Valmiki, who was a great sage. So in Valmiki's Ramayana, we have a description of how Hanuman appeared and what his childhood was like and how he came to be so powerful. So the strength that Hanuman derived is, of course, ultimately coming from the Supreme Lord himself, as indeed is the strength of everybody, because God is ultimately the original reservoir of all good qualities, whether it is strength, intelligence, beauty, ability, everything ultimately comes from him. However, there may be some kind of immediate cause for somebody obtaining his or her strength, ability, intelligence, etc. Normally, for all of us, it comes through our karma. Because of certain karma we have performed in previous lives, we get a certain kind of body in a certain kind of family with certain kinds of parents, with certain kinds of abilities, strength, intelligence, and so on. So that is normally how all of us get our stock of whatever resources we have, physical, mental, intellectual, and even the karmic situation in which we find ourselves. However, Hanuman is not like that, because Hanuman actually is an eternal devotee of Lord Ram. And when such eternal associates of Lord Ram or Lord Krishna, they appear in this world, they appear because of some instruments. Some people serve as the intermediary to kind of facilitate the pastimes of the Lord. So we see that these great devotees will have some father, some mother, they will be born in a certain place. So also with Hanuman. Actually, before the appearance of Lord Ram, uh, the Lord appeared, he made known his desire or his willingness to appear on earth in response to the pleas of the devatas or the demigods, who were the administrating personalities for the whole universe. And to assuage their anxieties about the state of the earth, which was beset with all kinds of violence and cruelty and injustice, he assured them that he would appear. And as he usually does in such cases, he also told the demigods to expand themselves and appear on earth through the medium of various personalities. So the demigods did that. So the entire monkey army that eventually went on to assist Lord Ram in his battle against Ravana. So they were all basically begotten by the demigods in the wombs of various personalities, various ladies. Uh, and these demigods, as Valmiki describes in the Ramayana, were not just ordinary monkeys. Because we have a certain idea of monkeys. When you look at a monkey, then you think of him as some small chimp, or just someone who does a lot of mischief, or at the most you may think in terms of a gorilla, something like that. But these were not monkeys at all. We must remember they were the progeny of great demigods who were exceptionally powerful. So, for example, Vali was the offspring of Indra. Sugriva was the offspring of Surya, the sun god. Similarly, Hanuman was the offspring of the wind god, Vayu. And Vayu is known to be extremely strong, very powerful, physically also. Apart from his spiritual strength, his intellectual power, he is also very physically powerful. So Hanuman was his son. So therefore we can understand that he was also very, very powerful. And all of these demigods were empowered with extraordinary abilities, yogic abilities, to change their form, to move at their will, and to do many other things which would be quite impossible for ordinary humans to do. So that is the first origin of Hanuman's strength, because he was the son of Vayu, the wind god. But also, and it's a long story, I won't get into all the details now, but suffice it to say, as a very young child, as a baby, Hanuman was, of course, innocently mischievous, as all babies and small children are. But small babies generally do not have the kind of power that Hanuman had. So when babies are mischievous, they don't cause that much damage. They may break something in the house, or they may spill something or whatever. But when Hanuman was mischievous, then his his mischief caused havoc everywhere. So and he reached out actually to he felt hungry, and he reached out to get the sun, which he thought was an apple or some kind of a fruit. And when Indra, saw this happening, the Surya and others saw this. Surya protected him, and a whole series of events happened there. And Indra unleashed his thunderbolt weapon, and it hit Hanuman, baby Hanuman, who he wasn't called Hanuman at that time. It hit him on the chin, and he fell to the ground, and he hurt his jaw, his chin jawbone actually, and the jawbone is called Hanu, the chin. So that's how he became known as Hanuman. So eventually, he fell unconscious, and his father, Vayu, became very sorry, became very angry. He was so aggrieved that he withdrew the life air from the whole universe, and no one was able to breathe. Finally, Brahma urged all the demigods to come and pacify, Vayu. So they did that, and then they all gave blessings and benedictions to Hanuman. And each of them gave him certain special powers. They gave him special abilities, special weapons, and that is how he became even more powerful than he already was. So, this is the origin of Hanuman's strength. So, ultimately, yes, everything comes from the Lord, but the immediate cause or the intermediate cause was these factors that I mentioned.
Very beautiful explanation, Maharaj, as usual. The the concept of the God as a Hercules and lifting the heavy burden with no assistance has already failed in common sense also, because you have president and you have devta, or the demigods. These are the people who assist him. Now here, Hanuman is famous. I was shocked to see in Peru and in Ecuador, the the murtis just look like Hanuman, where the native Indians worshipping them. And in Chile, there is a Mapuche tribe, which is in Chile, in the southernmost tip of USA, and also some Native American tribes, Navajo tribes, and I saw the images of a monkey god, and I was shocked to see that. So one of the things which people worship him is for intelligence. Is that a thing which people worship him for, Swamiji?
Actually, Hanuman is worshipped for many, many things. Of course, it needs some knowledge, some spiritual understanding in order to know who to worship and for what. When we go to exalted personalities like Hanuman, who are great devotees of God, then we should not be asking for petty things. According to Bhagavad Gita, it is only an unintelligent person who approaches God for benedictions that are material. When someone goes to God to ask him for some money or for some name and fame and position and power in this world, that is considered to be unintelligent. Because when you approach God, you should ask for the ultimate benediction, which is freedom from birth and death, eternal life in the association of God, in the spiritual world, pure devotion to God. So these are things that we should be asking for, not the petty benedictions of this world. So similarly, when we approach great devotees like Hanuman also, we should not be asking for petty things. So it may be that many people approach Hanuman for these things, but that is not the right reason to worship Hanuman. Hanuman, as I mentioned, is a reservoir of many, many great qualities. And so one can worship him to obtain even an atomic fraction of these qualities. But his principal quality is devotion to Lord Ram. So when we worship Hanuman, we should worship him principally for this one important quality, for this one important blessing, which is to become a great devotee of Lord Ram or Lord Krishna. So, bhakti is the greatest gift that we can seek from great devotees like Hanuman. So, that's the first thing that we should be asking him. The second is that he is also a great scholar. which is often not known. He was directly, not just, he was directly the disciple and student of the sun god, who himself is a great authority on Vedic knowledge. So he, Surya, personally instructed um, Hanuman in the knowledge of the Vedas. So he's a great scholar of the Vedas. So if we want to have a clear understanding of spiritual knowledge, the knowledge of bhakti from the scriptures, the Vedic scriptures, that's the second reason why we can worship Hanuman. Hanuman also is very powerful, very strong. But it's not only physical strength that Hanuman is renowned for, he is also known for his spiritual strength, for his intellectual strength, his strength of character, you know. So we can also approach Hanuman to develop a strong sense of character, noble values, integrity and character, and so on. So this is another reason we can approach Hanuman and worship him so that we can also get that kind of a blessing from him. We can also worship him for physical strength, for good health, in order to be able to serve Lord Ram, Lord Krishna, and to further their mission, which is to spread the message of devotion to the Lord everywhere. So we can ask for strength for such things, not merely for some selfish, petty purpose, to just be known as someone who's very powerful, like a champion boxer or something like that. And we can also ask Hanuman for freedom from sense desires. It is the desires of this world that actually plague our consciousness and constrain us to continue on in the cycle of birth and death. So Hanuman is a perfect exemplar of sense control, of mind control. Especially for those who are celibate monks, he is the ideal example. So celibate monks in particular pray to Hanuman for strength and ability to remain celibates and continue on in their spiritual endeavors. And those who are not monks, they can also pray to Hanuman for this purpose so that they can conserve their sexual energies and continue on in their spiritual life to help themselves make advancement and also to help others make advancement on the spiritual path. So these are just some of the very important reasons why one should or could worship Lord Hanuman, and also some reasons for which one should not approach Hanuman.
Hanuman has spanned from the time of Ramayana to the time of Mahabharata, and I think Bhim met him. Also, Arjun also, it seems that he met him. So he was situated on the flag of Arjun when he himself situated on the flag of Arjun when he went to fight the war of Mahabharata. So was that is that the like a Dirgayu, and is he one of the eternal people that are still living? Is it by the Shastra? Is it considered like that?
Yes, definitely. In fact, in the Valmiki Ramayana itself, there is an indication of this, that, after the entire battle of Lanka is fought and Ravana has been killed, then Ram returns to Ayodhya with Sita and Lakshman, and the entire army that assisted him also accompanies him in the Pushpak Viman, the aerial chariot, which was called Pushpak. And then Ram is coronated as king. There is a grand celebration. And the entire Vanara army, the monkey army and the bears and so on, they stay on in Ayodhya for some time. And as they're about to depart, there is a conversation between Lord Ram and Hanuman. So Lord Ram asks Hanuman, or he asks Hanuman to ask for a benediction. And Hanuman says that I only want one pointed devotion to you, and I want to be your servant eternally, and I want that I will live in this world as long as the narration of your pastimes, the Ramayana, continues. So then Lord Ram blesses him and says that actually the narration of my life and pastimes, which is the Ramayana, will continue on earth as long as the earth exists. And you will continue to live as long as the Ramayana exists. In other words, as long as the earth exists. At the very beginning of the Ramayana also, Brahma gives a benediction and makes a prophecy of sorts when he tells Valmiki Muni that the Ramayana that you will compose will continue to be heard and sung and remembered on this planet as long as there are the rivers that flow on this earth, as long as there are mountains on this earth, and so on, indicating thereby that the Ramayana would continue as long as the earth existed. So therefore, Hanuman has the personal blessing of Lord Ramachandra, Lord Ram, to live on this earth as long as the earth exists. But of course, we are not in a position to see him because in this age of Kali, we have lost that qualification, that spiritual ability to see great personalities like Lord Ram or even Lord Hanuman.
You brought a very important point that we have lost the ability to see him. But people, is there a way to, how do we develop that qualities to see him? Because I think if we can develop a contact lens to see something, or we can develop a microvision which we can see in the night also nowadays, night vision glasses are there, military uses. Is it possible how we develop that vision to see him? uh, Through yoga or through, I think instruments won't help us there because he has to himself become visible. So how do we see him? Because most of the people, they believe in pratyaksha praman, or seeing, they believe in what they see. And when you give them an idea that you cannot see him with your own eyes, then how do people who try to see him regular, I know many people who try to see him, but how do we see him? What is the right method to see him?
Physically seeing with one's eyes, these eyes of flesh, the fleshy eyes that we have of this body, is not the only way of seeing. And in any case, whatever we can see with these eyes, the eyes that are there in this body of ours, is very limited because the extent to which our vision uh, moves is very small. We can't see objects beyond a certain distance. We can't even see objects that are very tiny. So the extent of our vision is very, very limited, both at the micro scale and at the macro scale as well, even at the scale intermediate. So therefore, the idea that we should be able to see things with our eyes is a misplaced idea. It is not that we should believe only in what we can see with these eyes, because our eyes are not only limited in terms of the limit of vision, but they also can be very misleading. We have so many optical illusions and so on. So when we want to learn and see phenomena that are beyond the range of our visual perception, or even the perception of stemming from our other senses, we have to have access to spiritual senses, to purified material senses. The reason that we are not able to perceive and comprehend spiritual reality is that our senses and our mind and intelligence, all of them are contaminated by material consciousness. So, when our senses are purified, when our mind and intelligence are purified by spiritual practices, then with these pure senses, the spiritualized senses, we can perceive spiritual reality. So, similarly with Lord Hanuman, why only Hanuman? Anything on the spiritual realm cannot be perceived unless one's senses have been sufficiently purified. So, this purification happens principally by the chanting of the names of Lord Ram, of Lord Krishna, like Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, by the constant and devoted recitation and repetition of this Mahamantra, one actually purifies the heart of all things that are contaminating our consciousness. So therefore, we will be Hanuman will become available to us, so to speak, if we purify our heart in this way at some point. But we must remember that it's not something very casual or very cheap that we just see Hanuman. So therefore, the Vedic scriptures and our acharyas and Srila Prabhupada, our founder acharya of the Hare Krishna movement in specifically says that one should not be so eager to see great spiritual personalities and the Lord Himself prematurely with our eyes. It is more important to learn to see with our ears first, which means that one must gain spiritual knowledge. When one has gained spiritual knowledge by the process of submissively hearing the spiritual messages of the Vedic literature from the bona fide disciplic succession, then there is a gradual process of purification. Our spiritual senses get awakened, and then we will be able to perceive and see personalities like Hanuman and understand other aspects of spiritual reality.
A great point you said, because it's very commonsensical. And one of the questions comes from the students right now is that if Hanuman can come to South America, or the at least the information about Hanuman, why is information about Ram not available in the historical records?
It is, it is. There are references, as I mentioned, there are Ramayans of the different versions of Ramayana, not just in India, but all over different parts of Southeast Asia, even Far East Asia, going all the way up to Japan, China, Korea, Philippines, Cambodia, and Thailand, Indonesia, all these countries. You find so many references there. And there are also references in so many other countries, really. So it is just that because such a long time has elapsed, and today the cultures have kind of moved away from the original Vedic culture so substantially that we are not able to see that connection. For example, till such time as in the modern age, there was some communication available where there were books and there was other means of understanding that there is a Lord Ram, there existed someone like Hanuman. People in Chile, for example, wouldn't have been able to make that connection because they didn't know perhaps that there was such a historical personality way back in time. It's only when this knowledge becomes available to the world and the people of the world in general, then they're able to connect their ancient cultures with Hanuman or with Ram or with other features of Vedic civilization.
There is a big quest going on, big quest, because I think many people all over I can see that all over the US as well as in South America. I can see that a big quest is going on to find their roots. Everybody is looking for their identity. And people are also realizing that the colonial imposition of ideas and ideals was not sufficient. So many people are trying to rediscover their past. And so there are research studies now available by the University of Mexico where they say that 70,000 years back, or even as recent as 10,000 years back, people over there came from Lanka, there from Tamil Nadu over there, and from other countries like Indonesia, which was a had a strong presence of Ram culture even today, and they came there. So this is the biggest churning I can see in this century going on, and the people are discovering that what they were told was not right. And here you said that Ramayana was predicted to be eternal on this planet Earth in terms of the historicity. Now, in that context, the rediscovering of Hanuman and trying to search the roots back. In fact, the Machu Picchu, a very famous site, tourism site in Peru, there are a lot of inscriptions over there which are in Brahmi, and which really connect them to the original script of Valmiki Ramayana, which was Brahmi and then Sanskrit Devanagari after that. So uh, the linguistic sciences, the archaeological sciences, and the Shabda Pramar or the scriptural basis, all three are pointing to the direction that yes, they were true. Like in Egypt, the study was done that the original god of Egypt was Bhagwan Ram, because Ramses is what they worship, and now somehow it is now dawning that the whole Moses story came from Ramses, and that's how it came down. So this churning is bringing people back towards Hanuman and other Vedic cultures. But the so what do you think can be the essential message for those people who are coming back because of history, not because of just spirituality? So do you think that's the right way to approach, or do you think that the chanting and those things have to be done before they can talk about historicity aspect?
Well, ultimately, if somehow or the other one connects to one's spiritual roots and one becomes a devotee of the Lord and makes his or her human life perfect, then that's what is important. There may be different reasons for people coming to such spiritual consciousness, whether it is a yearning to connect with their roots, or whether it is some historical evidence, or whether it is some spiritual tendency that is innate in somebody, uh, and someone becomes a spiritual seeker. So, whatever be the reason, ultimately, if somebody comes to the path of bhakti, to the path of devotion to Ram, to Krishna, then that is what is important.
So
So, in the past as well, you see, the history of human migration is as old as the planet itself. Humans have always been moving all around the globe. And so it's not a recent phenomenon. Recent migrations are uh, easy for us to recall because there are historical records, there are traditions, there's a way to connect, But there are long spells in history where civilization in a certain region may become, let's say, dormant for a while because of some cataclysmic event like some flood, or things may happen. Then after a long period of disconnection, then it is difficult for people to identify their roots and to know where they came from. But somehow or the other, there may be archaeological connections, as you said, in some countries in South America or Africa. Something comes up which reminds people of their connection to the original Vedic culture. But ultimately, whether these external historical or archaeological uh, reasons remain, The ultimate connection is the spiritual one through the Vedic literature. This message, these teachings will remain. They will be carried on in the disciplic succession, regardless of what happens in terms of cataclysmic events, in terms of creation, destruction. The Supreme Lord always makes arrangement for this Vedic knowledge to be available for the people of this world. And whenever it becomes temporarily lost due to some circumstances on the earth, then he revives it by either appearing himself in the form of an avatar or by empowering some personalities, some human beings or others like Hanuman on this planet to act as his ambassadors and instruments. So, in some or the other way, the Supreme Lord, Sri Ram, Sri Krishna, they make available this knowledge for the people of the world.
A great point you said, Maharaj. And there is a concept of Panchmukhi Hanuman, which is very popular in India, but it's also getting popular here too, because one of the temples I've been for my new book, I've been researching a lot of these Native American tribes, and that's how I discovered all this information. Now, Panchmukhi Hanuman is also found in Native American tribes in the US, as well as Alaskan tribes and also South American tribes. It's totally remarkable. And you have one of the faces of Panchmukhi is Varaha, and one of the faces Narsingha. So, do you think is this form of Hanuman an imagination, or it's one of the powerful aspects of his, or he's a devotee of all these personalities and therefore he's shown as Panchmukhi?
Well, I'm not exactly aware of the scriptural uh, kind of authenticity of this particular form. It may be a certain kind of tradition that has been there, but we must remember that ultimately Hanuman is a devotee of Lord Ram. He is not Ram himself.
Correct.
So I have not come across any scriptural references, so I am unable to comment on the authenticity of this particular form. It is possible that there are some Puranic references, but I haven't come across any so far.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I will not be able to comment on that.
No, thank you, Maharaj. This is a fabulous discussion and a lot of information you gave us on this. And my one last question is that many people are fascinated by the gada he carries, which is so club. So, do you know what is the reason behind that he carries a club?
He carries a club to reassure the devotees that he's there to protect them. And he carries it also to warn the people of demoniac nature who always want to create trouble for everybody else and make life a living hell on this earth. So, in order to admonish them and warn them, he carries the club. So, uh, these are the reasons why Hanuman carries this club.
I think thank you very much, Maharaj, for your time today, and it's been wonderful always to host you and hear from you. And from the audience perspective, they always love to hear you, and they find a great spiritual help after hearing you. So, so thank you for your time today, and thank you for coming. And viewers, we just would like to see this video, comment on it, and watch it on YouTube. Namaskar, and see you again on the next show.